Welcome to Project Brupeg. My name's Damien. We're converting a sunken fishing trawler into a global expedition and research boat. We're community funded and we get our supporters on board. This week we're finishing off our aluminium Seadoor. If you'd like to know more about Brupeg and what we're planning to do, Jess and I have a chat at the end of this video where you can see what we're up to. So I'm still waiting on a few parts for the dogs. I can't build any more at this stage, so I'm going to get into the frame. So what that is basically a stainless lip that gets welded onto the side of the steel cabin, and then the rubber that's glued to the aluminium door pushes up against that stainless in order to seal it. So I'll show you what I'm building and you'll have a bit of an idea as to what we need to do. So we've got this piece of 40mm by 3 stainless. It's a wee bit flimsy at the moment because it's just sort of draped between the bench and the trailer. But what this does is this gets welded, one edge gets welded to the boat and the other is where the seal presses up against. So I've got to put essentially a lip of this all the way around the door. So I'll take you up and I'll show you how we're going to do it. What we've got to do, this is the cabin. If you look at it in a profile, it's a 50mm wide cabin with a piece of 3mm steel on the outside, so it's 53mm in that direction there. This here is a piece of 10 by 10 solid square box that's welded in, and it's basically welded down this edge here. So on this side it's very square, there's no like welds or anything like that. Originally this was going to form part of the seal, but we've changed our design. We've got to take the paint off this and then we're going to weld the stainless onto the edge of this, and it's going to stick out in this dimension about 40mm roughly, and the door will come in and sit flush and squash up against that here. So I have to figure out where that door is going to sit, take into account the rubber, and then weld everything else back here to accommodate that. So I'll whip the pantograph hinge off. That can come away now, so yeah, we'll just get rid of that. It's just 4 bolts, 2 here and 2 just on the other side, and then we've got full access to that door.
Wow, could have been.
Yeah, this is obviously the first of 4, but the plan is basically to tack them into the side of the lounge, and then I'm going to weld the corners and I'll buzz a weld right the way around. It's pretty thin, 3mm. The cabin does the curve that we had to bend into the aluminium door, so we have to do the reverse bend in these things here, but luckily we're able to just use a clamp and pull it in, tack it, pull it in, tack it, etc. So it won't be too much of a drama doing it with steel. More effective with the power on.
Better. I think it'll be a mask, eh? It's quite toxic that paint.
I think they're spraying in the booth actually.
Yeah.
So I'm still learning how to weld with this machine. So I just did a couple of test welds. That one was hot and slow, and you can see the metal, basically the weld starts to drop down into the metal. The metal's basically getting too hot and starting to just lose its strength, and the weld's obviously falling through the bottom. This one here was sort of an even speed but a bit faster. The weld's sitting quite proud of the stainless at the start and then starting to fall down at the end, but it's not really dripping through the steel, so I'm not sure what's going on there. And this one here was a bit of a balls up all around really. I started hot and did a couple of circles to try and get some heat at the start, and then started doing a zigzag V all the way along, and it's just messy. These ones are much tidier, so I think what I'll do for this setup, this is 3mm as well, same as what I'm about to be welding onto this here. I think I'll set it up like this and just run a nice steady smooth speed all the way along, and I think I'll end up with really good welds if I do that. I've never used a welder that has like options to set it up. With Nugget it was basically you put it at full bore and you just weld. there wasn't really too many variables. Rain is probably the only variable.
Rain?
Yeah, compensate for rain. Okay, so my plan is basically to do that, like tack the corners in for each one all the way around, and then tack the, or give a reasonable weld to the actual inside corner on each one, and then I'm going to get in and basically run a weld all the way down. And you can see here, I don't know if you can see that, there's like probably 5mm sticking out. It needs to get pushed in, but that's easy enough, and I can do that almost by hand, and I'll be able to just clamp that in the end and crank that right out. So that's why I'm going to leave the bend till last to deal with.
You can see that nice gap between the new metal and the door frame.
Alright, I'm about to start filming, so none of your normal swearing.
None of my normal swearing?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that we've turned into a non-swearing channel?
Fuck no.
Oh, good. I'm so bloody pleased about that.
No, that idea can piss right off. Okay, so that's the plan, is basically create that on all the edges around, and then the door rubber seals up onto that there. So we just have to basically adjust the thickness of the rubber to get the door to sit the right. I want the door to be flush with the cabin, so that's the plan all around, is to use the stainless as the wear edge.
And you're not worried about this?
No, we'll fix that easy.
Are you doing a continuous weld, or are
Yep.
you doing that? Okay.
Yeah, continuous, because it's got to be watertight.
Lovely.
Let's start a new world today. Life is given us a treat. Whatever you will grow in me, I'll land on my 2 feet. I'm hanging.
Oh my god, this weld was so much easier.
Yeah. Right.
That I can desire. I'm looking for someone to light up my fire. I love the way that you move when you dance to the music. The way your feet seem to float above the floor. How your eyes start to glow.
That's a good bit of heat in it.
Yeah.
Yes, Dame was wearing the welding jacket that Greg dropped in. Thanks, Greg.
It's bringing me down for sure. Your shaded smile shows who you are. 'Cause you've heard everything before. I'm looking for something that I can desire. I'm looking for someone to light up my fire. I love the way that you move when you dance to the music. The way your feet seem to float above the floor. How your eyes start to glow when I get close to you, baby.
Go around and sort of tack it every, maybe, I don't know, what about 2.5 inches, something like that. So every 2.5 inches I'll basically tack the stainless onto the mild, because that allows me to get the bend perfect all the way around. I can just keep working all the way around. You can clamp it, tack, clamp it, tack. This is what my partner in crime looks like 70% of the time. She's having a shit day today.
Last night was the best
Okay, so that one needs to be cranked outwards. Right, now that we've got the sides all welded in, they're not the prettiest welds in the world, but it's not going to matter. These are mostly going to be flapped off, and yeah, it'll be a smooth finish once we're all done. However, in saying that, we are all set up still to weld our stainless, so we're going to get stuck into making the little the wedges that sit up here. Now the dogs are going to be pulling up tight on those, so I have to make sure that they're aligned with the dogs. So to do that, I'm going to have to fit the door into this opening. Hello, fluffy dog.
Wow. It's amazing. Looks great.
Cool, eh?
Yeah.
I've got good clearance all the way around here, and I was thinking with the stainless, I was wondering about like tipping them out on a slight angle, like a 30-degree angle or something, all the way around. I probably could have, but also it doesn't really matter. It's not the end of the world. If I really wanted to, I could always weld a solid stainless bar onto the outside, so I've got like a big solid round edge on it. Maybe that's something we add later.
What does it look like now when you pull it back?
It's not bolted,
yeah.
it just bolts all
So
up.
it's just a flat, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
and
you're
then
relying on the pressure. Cool.
like we're going to do these somewhere around there. Righto, so I want to show you how I make the dogs on Brupeg. So this is the handle that you saw me make just before, welded to the bolt and then just linished up so that it looks nice, and then we'll give this a blast so it's all the same colour. A couple of other critical bits. So you got your handle here which has a D cut into it. This is laser cut, so this is raw laser cut. Diameter of that is a 50mm radius. Now what we need to do, cut this bolt. So I need to basically cut the equivalent D into that. So I take the top third of this bolt off, back to about here somewhere, slice all of that thread off, and I make sure that the slice is, it doesn't go to the halfway mark on the bolt. It basically is 1/3 maximum, doesn't go any further, because that way I can still screw nuts onto this bolt without it risking the nut, you know, coming loose or anything like that. So the way that we assemble it, so it goes through from the outside. You'll have a 3mm skin on here, so this will get stuck out 3mm plus the thickness of this washer. This washer then goes on the door like that. You've got your regular nut that will be cut down. Right, and then at that stage you can set how tight you want the door to be. So I just like to finger tight it so that it's got a little bit of tension but it's still easy enough to push around. Then this will be going onto the D-slotted bolt eventually, and then you can either put another washer on or you can just put a nut straight on. There you have it. So relatively easy tension. It doesn't, like, wherever you set it, it'll stay. It doesn't sort of droop on its own or anything like that. This is obviously not the right size, but when that goes across on the outside, you can see that it's going to obviously come up onto a wedge that'll be mounted here, and then vice versa, you can open it on the inside. So really simple design, but really effective, and this is how a lot of the trawlers seem to be building them, so we're just going to copy them. They work great, they're incredibly cheap and easy to make. This handle costs 15 bucks to get laser cut. All up the stainless, there's probably, I don't know, 30 bucks of stainless in all of this, including the bolt and the washers and everything like that. So super cheap, super easy and super simple and effective door handle. So let's have a chat about different metals on boats. There's a lot of people that'll piss and moan about it. However, it is completely and practically safe to do it if you do it right. Alright, so standard old steel boat, Brupeg. We've got our anodes here. So these basically look after the boat when it's in the water. These are made out of zinc, and the zinc essentially corrodes away instead of the boat corroding away. So Brupeg has 16 anodes and they're all fairly large. The physical size of the anode doesn't really make that much difference. It just means that you have to change them less. So these are probably, I don't know what they are, probably a good 2-3 kgs each, maybe 2 kgs, something like that. Now when you've got stainless and you've got mild steel welded together, so for example up here in the scuppers, if I just zoom in, you can see that little bar that's welded in there. That's a piece of stainless and it's welded to a mild steel rim all the way around that scupper. Now that is probably, one of them is going to probably rust, and we have to deal with that. So the way that we do that is making sure that we've used the correct wire, and then we've also got the actual steel hull anoded up correctly. Aluminium is a different beast. You have to make sure that you've isolated it electronically. So if you're, say for example, you're trying to bolt stainless to aluminium, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can put like a rubber pad under it, and then make sure you use bolts that aren't touching the either, you know, like say if it's a stainless bolt, it's not touching the aluminium plate or whatever it is that you're bolting together. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. There's a product called Duralac. I've used that in the past. It's really common on masts and things like that to put a stainless fitting. If you think about all your mast fittings for your sheaths and halyards and all that sort of stuff, they're almost always stainless, or a stainless housing on, you know, a nylon sheath or something like that. That then goes into an aluminium mast, so you have to protect that aluminium mast from corroding away. So the way you do that is with Duralac, and it's just like a paste you put on, and then you can use monol rivets, or you can use aluminium rivets, and then rivet the whole thing all together. And essentially what that does is it stops the electrical conductivity between them. It's not perfect, but it's pretty blooming good. I've rebuilt masts like that using that method, and it's lasted a long time. And masts, you know, get a hiding, they never get washed, they're in the salt almost all the time. The air's quite conductive being so close to the sea, so it is a way that you can do it. I probably wouldn't recommend doing that underwater if you've got stainless fittings going into an aluminium boat, but it's certainly something that you can do in the atmosphere, like up in a mast. if you're going to something like our pantograph hinge, where you've got a stainless plate going up against an aluminium plate, you've got a lot of contact surface area there, so you need to make sure that those two don't really interact with each other. So the way that we're going to deal with that is put a gasket in between them. So it'll be a small, I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, it'll be rubber or something that's non-conductive. So rubber, it could even be like a paper gasket or an oil resistant gasket material, just anything that's going to basically last and not break down over time and stop that electrical conductivity. Now you also have to remember the bolts. So we got stainless bolts going through an aluminium panel. What we need to do is drill out the aluminium panel slightly bigger and then put in a very small, like a nylon sleeve, and then the bolt goes through that and touches up on the back. You have to put a gasket on the back as well. So every single part can't transmit electricity from one to the other. That's what you're trying to stop in order to stop the corrosion happening on the aluminium. It has to happen also in our dogs because we've got stainless pins in our dogs. We also need to put a little plastic sleeve inside those as well, and then under all of the washers and everything. So that's how you can protect stainless and alloy from eating each other apart. Before I forget, there's one last thing that I'd like to mention on alloy. So it's quite common for ships and so forth to have aluminium superstructures. Historically, you used to bolt these to like a stainless or a steel lip. So the aluminium would come down and then the steel would be behind it and it would be bolted up against it. And then you'd have some sort of isolator, whether it's plastic or a rubber gasket or something along those lines, to basically stop the cabin from being eaten away from the conductivity of the steel hull. Recently I've started to see quite a few boats with aluminium superstructures be put together with explosion welded aluminium and mild steel strips. So it's basically aluminium welded to mild steel. I know that sounds a bit funny, but it's a thing and it's bloody awesome. So you weld your strips to your steel boat on the mild steel side, and then you can weld your aluminium superstructure directly to these strips. I suspect the only way to actually stop them from killing each other is to just anode the boat up correctly and do it in that sense. So that's certainly something that I've been seeing boats go towards, and it makes a hell of a lot more sense in terms of doing that rather than sort of bolting the superstructure on and hoping you don't get leaks. Last thing I'm going to build for the day, I'm hoping to get all of the stainless welded up before I shut down for the night. I've got to build the stainless, I don't know what you call them, wedges. The dogs slide up against them. They look basically like a door wedge. So I'll show you my regular shopping pile, and I'll show you how I get my stainless. So in this bucket is a whole stack of different, couple of bits of mold, but it's almost all stainless, random shapes and bends and brackets and all sorts of stuff like that. I try and look through that first. If there's nothing in there, I'll then go to my pile over here where I've got a few sort of odds and sods of pipe work and stuff that's all stainless. And finally I've got this beast of a pallet load of stainless. So one of the boats here did a big refit recently, and this is all of their leftover stainless and so on, and they just dropped it off. I'm sure there's going to be stuff in there that we can use. So what the plan is, I'm going to have a hunt through this and see if I can find some thick stainless to build some wedges out of. Same. That'll do. Let's make it out of that. Alright, so I've got a random bit of offcut. So we're going to chop this up, make it into something pretty. So rather than try and measure these out individually, just made up a little wooden jig. So that is basically the shape that I have to build. So as you pull the dog up, it starts sliding up, pulling the door tighter and tighter, and then it sort of finishes in this flat here, and that basically locks it off, and then this stop here means that it can't go any further. So on the previous ones I've rounded that off just to make it sort of neat and lovely and all that sort of stuff. I'll do the same sort of thing on these stainless ones. I'm probably gonna, I don't know, maybe bring a bigger sort of arc just in case you bash yourself or whatever, it doesn't wallop you or, you know, open up skin or anything like that. So I'll probably have to put a bit of thought into the shape that I actually make it, just so that it's a bit sort of ocean safe. But yeah, essentially I've got to create 4 of those per door. Alright, so that's essentially the 4 marked out. So we'll just go and cut these out with a grinder and then give them a nice linish up so that they look lovely. That's going to have to wait for the morning though. The midgies are out ferociously and the sun is just about to set, so I'm going to pack up now for the night. I think that's probably as much as I'll get done today, and yeah, get up early in the morning and we'll get stuck into those, cut those out and then get them welded into that frame.
waiting around the bend. Baby, let's just pretend. I wanna stay like this forever. I wanna stay right here with you. I wanna stay right here with you. As the rest we fall until it all breaks down. But I need it so I will stay around. When you're all messed up, it's a great relief to be understood. It's a shame still waters run deep. So let us walk right into the forest. Fruit trees and the rising sun. It is something we can't outrun. I do whatever it takes to hold you, whatever it takes to you. Wanna be in this game for two. When it all comes down, do you feel alive? Are you feeling lost? You were made to fight, but you're so much more than a memory. It is not easy. It's a shame still waters run deep.
So now the dogs are built, let me show you what we're left with. So basically I've got the outside handle, flat washer, stainless washer, and then I've got a piece of 3mm plate representing the 3mm skin that's going to be on this door. Then we've got the dog pivot that was welded in. We've got another washer, a nut, and our 2 nuts on the other side. So let me go through and detail this back end. So this is what you've just seen me build. These are the stainless wedges. So on the dog itself, we've got the same arrangement as yesterday. We've got a stainless washer, we've got a nut that needs to be obviously a bit tighter because that shouldn't be sloppy. We've got a dog, and then we've also got the nylock mount that holds everything, holds this dog onto the hard up against that nut behind it. It's the physical shape of these wedges that actually make them work. So you can sort of see that ramp, and then you've got a flat up the top here, and then a physical stop. As the dog, see if I can hold it, as the dog basically pulls tight, it gets pulled further and further, higher and higher up this ramp, and then where it locks off, it's got this big flat, so you're not trying to twist the dog, or you're not got a very small point of contact. You've got a big, the full width of the dog handle is the width of that flat, and then you've got a physical stop so that you can't crank it up in a real hurry and then have it completely slide off the back and the door come loose. So now that we've got that door mocked up with the 3mm alloy plate on the outside, the various washers, the nuts and bolts and so on, we can weld those wedges in, and that'll allow us to press on. We'll then have to, I realised I have to modify the bottom wedges slightly. I've made them fractionally too big, so I'll just trim a couple of mil off those, and then we can weld those in as well, and then it's time to start fitting the skin on this door. So there you have it. That is a fairly heavy weld. It's not the straightest weld in the world, but yeah, that'll do. It's not going to move at all. So that's our dog basically held on. They're all going to be welds sort of as chunky as that. I'm incredibly happy with how easy this welder is to use. So I've got the dogs swung around the other way, just basically so I can weld them in. And then when I get the new dogs made, I'm extending the point out from the pivot here. Is coming out 100mm, so it'll be about out here somewhere, and then I've got 250mm out this side, so it'll be a pretty decent sort of handle, and that'll be on both of them. Well, actually all four of them will be the same. So now that I've got them pinned in like this, I've done the top two, now I'll just weld these two in. I don't think I've properly explained how in love with this welder I am. I'd always been pretty happy with the welding. I used to get mild to mild with nugget. As soon as I went from mild to stainless, welding those two together, the welds were sort of hit and miss. Most of the time I'd, you know, be like, oh, let's maybe grind that out and do that again. Man, this thing is just amazing. Let me show you this weld. So that there is basically just a straight run. I've got the machine set pretty hot. But yeah, like there's no way I would have got a weld as even and nice as that with nugget just by blasting it out. You can sort of see like there's what, 3 sort of dimples in it. That's me not going fast enough or too fast, sort of not having even speed. But man, apart from that, I'm so stoked with that weld. Alright, the wedges are on, the dogs are pretty much complete. I just need to start putting the skin together and then I can finish off the handles on the outside of the door. I don't want to scratch the aluminium. It's got a plastic layer on it, so when I'm ready to make it tidy I can just peel that plastic layer off. But I just noticed that I think I've damaged the plastic layer at the top, so I'm going to chuck this in between the alloy and the, like that. I think that'll work a bit better. So what the plan is here, now that I've got that clamped up where it's going to sit, I'm going to go and drill the 16mm hole that goes through those pivots. I'm going to drill it from the inside out, and that way I know that essentially that skin is going to be positioned in a place that it can't sort of move and wobble and be a bit of a pain. So what the plan is that when I go to glue it all up, I can then just put those 4 bolts through and they locate it, and then it's a pretty straightforward job of clamping all the way around, knowing that it's exactly where I need it to be. My US Air Force goggles from my mate Richard, they'll do the trick. The top 2 are basically drilled and bolted, and that's obviously holding it in place. There's a couple of welds on the outside of the frame that I've got to shave off from when we welded, you know, various parts. They're sticking out and therefore not flush. So I'll deal with those now, and then we can start clamping and drilling these bottom guys. We're ready to pretty much mark it out, rough it up, and then clean it up and stick it all together. So the hinge isn't adjusted. I need to obviously figure out where it's going to sit. It's got quite a lot of vertical adjustment up and down as well as a little bit sideways. So at the moment it's obviously all just sitting there. It doesn't really matter. The door just has to fit into this cutout. Once we've got the door sorted, we can then adjust the hinge to get the door sort of sitting perfect. But that's getting really bloody close. So the plan now, I'll go through and mark it all out, and then rough that area up so that the glue's got a really good surface to bond to. After using the stainless wire wheel, I'm actually thinking of just scuffing both surfaces of the alloy, so the frame and the plate, just with that stainless wheel. It was left a really coarse finish, which is pretty awesome for the silicone glue that's going to be used to stick it all together. So. So the plan's pretty simple. I've gone through with the frame behind me here. With the stainless buff wheel on the grinder, I've gone and ripped up all of the surface that it's going to be gluing. I've got the skin over the back. You can't quite see it in the camera yet, but the skin's prepped and ready to go over the back. It's all cleaned down. I've acid washed it, so there should be no rubbish on there. I'm going to be using some of my my adhesive stuff. So this is a Fix-Tech Fix 8FN is the stuff we're using, and we've used this all over the boat and found it to be pretty good. I've never used this one though. This is a clear stuff. It's the same as we've used black and white, but I've never seen it in clear. I've only just seen it a couple of days ago, so I'll give it a shot and yeah, see how it goes. I'm pretty confident that this stuff is going to bond the two skins together. It's able to bond aluminium, and it's unbelievably strong.
You've shattered me, but we'll be stronger to fight the pain. I wanna wake up without sorrow. I wanna step out in a world that's brighter. We are the people of tomorrow.
Need something to line this up.
We stand together, raise our hands up higher, higher. We raise our hands up to the sky, higher.
Right. Gonna get some clamps. We'll put that together. Not sure these clamps are big enough. So you can sort of see it's squeezing out the edge. If I come on top, you can kind of get an idea of it there. The gap that I've maintained all the way around is probably a couple of mil, and the sheet of aluminium sticks out over the frame, so you can sort of see there it's bigger than the actual frame. I've done that on purpose so that I can then shave the aluminium sheet to exactly the right shape for the door opening. So the frame deals with the seal and the aluminium sheet deals with the door opening. So got a wee bit of evaluated trim off, but that's all pretty easy to do once it's all glued up. We'll just do that with a skill saw and then clean it up with a hand file and some sandpaper. Gives you an idea of what some weekends working away in the yard are like. It's pretty much just me working away on the boat. There's one guy in a shed over the back, and that's about it. So I'll let that dry overnight. There's not much more I can do on that one today. Come back tomorrow, and then we'll have a go at getting that fitted up to the hinge and then get the dogs made and fitted. Some really exciting news to update you on as well is the rudder shaft and stabiliser hinges, as well as a bunch of other parts and tools and so on, are on their way from Victoria up to Brupeg and Bundaberg. So we'll hopefully have them. They left a couple of days ago on a truck, so I'm assuming probably in a few more days we'll have them here. We can start fitting our rudder, and we can also start getting into our stabilisers on the side of the boat. We're all glued up, so now it's time to rip these clamps off the door and see what we're left with. Lovely, let's show you what we're working with. So you can sort of see the glue is squeezed out all around the edge, or pretty well all around the edge, which is what I was after. It's a clear glue that we've used as opposed to like a black or a white. Mainly just so that the door looks like it's pretty much an aluminium door. You can't see real obvious glue lines. And then underneath where the dogs go, you can sort of see there's a real clear glue mark all the way around there on all four of them, so that's come out pretty well. Probably could have glued it a little bit closer on those. On that one just, oh that's alright, at that end that's fine. Yeah, sweet, that'll do. There's no way that's going to come off. Sweet, so let's get that cut to size and then we'll get that mounted onto the boat. So this morning's job, we need to cut the last three of the dogs. So these are the handles that are going to be welded onto the bolts that are going to be going through the aluminium pivots that we made for the door. So just going to mark these out and then we'll get stuck in. We'll chop these up and then we're going to do the same thing we did last time for this handle here. We're basically making three more of these, so we're going to be doing the slots and then the bending, welding, polishing, all that sort of stuff. So let's cut these out, see how fast we can make them. This one was really slow because it was the first one that I made. These ones we're going to try and rip them out real quick. So these are the bends that I'm cutting in now, so you want to cut them about 2/3 of the way down, maybe 3/4, that sort of thing, just depends on how hard it is to bend the material. And then you can bend it round to like a right angle and then fill the gap up.
Until it all breaks down, but I need it so I will stay around.
So in order to create this, we need to start with a piece of flat, and then we cut some slots into it. So basically there's a 25 by 25 mil square with a slot cut. If you can see it that way, it's about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through. There's another slot cut here, 3/4 of the way through, and then on the other side there's one cut through. So basically that allows me to bend them in different directions and so on.
It is something we can't outrun. I do whatever it takes to hold you, whatever it takes to you. Wanna be in this game for two. When it all comes down, do you feel alive? Are you feeling lost? You were made to fly, but you're so much more than a memory. It is not easy.
So I'm up tight against the vise and I'm not going to be able to bend it easily. So one of the plans I have, throw a spanner on it, like that. Just a spanner. Pretty close.
As the rest will fall, till it all breaks down. But I need it so I will stay around. And when you're all messed up, it's a great relief to be understood. It's a shame still waters run deep. What else? Still waters run deep. Listen up now. When it all comes down, do you feel alive? Are you feeling lost? That you were made to fight, but you're so much more than a memory. It's not easy. You were made to fight. It's a shame. Still waters run deep.
Okay, so we've got the three handles sorted. I've gone through and buzzed the writing off the top of these bolts, and then you can sort of see I put a 45 on two opposing sides. So the plan is basically just to weld each of these bolts onto each of these, but weld it in that position there. It's important when you want to check something really accurately to get the biggest square that you can. Not because you need it, it's mainly because you've forgotten where you put the small square. Pretty good. Last bit. Find one that's not hot. So, this is just a regular bolt at this stage welded on to the handle. We've got these. These are laser cut handles. These are going to form the handle that goes on the inside. What I need to do, you can see the flat that's in there. So that hole is the same diameter as this bolt. However, this obviously has a flat. I need to now cut the flat into the bolt. So, going to go through and we'll slice this off now. So the plan's pretty simple. I've got it held in the vise. I'm gonna, if you sort of look down there, it's about as sort of level as I can get it, I think. What the plan is to slice down those threads. You'll see what I mean in a second. But in order to get it to fit into this D, I'm just going to use my vernier calipers to make sure that I've got the bolt spot on, mainly because I don't want to have to keep taking this bolt in and out of the vise. happy with that. 4 handles ready to go. Righto, so the dogs are now sort of ready to go. So the door behind me is ready to assemble. So we've got the dog assembly that we made. We've got the 2 big washers, the nylock nut, and also the regular nut that we've cut in half. So we'll assemble these up and see how they all work. So this alloy's got a plastic film over the surface to keep it looking schmick. So I'm just going to pull back a little bit of that. I want to peel the most of it off on the cap up when the door's up the top, but I'm going to pull back enough to get the washer onto the alloy. Stainless washer, aluminium door. I'm going to be using Duralac on these, mainly just because it's a gel. It's really easy and simple to use that in order to stop the electrical conduction between the 2 metals. Right, I'm dry fitting everything at the moment, so we won't be putting it in right now. It's pretty gooey, disgusting stuff. So next goes on the big washer. Again, this will have Duralac on it. Alright, so that nut there basically sets the tension of the handle, so you can determine how loose or tight the actual handle is to open and close. This guy goes on over top, and then nylock. And if you really wanted to, you could probably put Loctite or something like that on that nylock, but you don't really need to. Right. Real simple, bulletproof. Look at this. None of this was planned, but that is bloody awesome. I need to bend those handles a little bit. You can see they don't quite line up, but that is absolutely perfect. So you're not going to be able to smack yourself on those, the ends of those, when they're locked. So that's a door in the locked position, and when they're open they just point downwards. But yeah, that's something that I didn't expect to happen, and I'm absolutely stoked. Really important when you're doing a job like this to make sure that you have parts left over, because that just highlights the fact that you've clearly forgotten something.
Open it. So did the dogs work?
Yeah, everything seems to work good.
Wow! Geez, it's a real engineered thing, eh?
Yeah.
Have you cut it?
Not perfect shape, no. No. This is the first dry fit.
The first fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's slightly off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really didn't think that the doors would be one of the major engineering projects. I had it scheduled in my head like 50 hours, but
Yeah,
I think it's much more than that.
Oh yeah, easy. Yeah. No,
It's a work of art, sweetheart. It's amazing. I love it.
And the thing is, you put your insulation in and you won't see any of it.
Mm.
This is the only bit that's visible when it's finished.
You know, for an alloy door, it's quite heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of metal in there.
Yeah, there's lots of stainless, there's lots of chunks of big metal and...
Yeah, well...
Yeah. So my plan is to put rubber glued onto this surface here, all the way around as well, so it acts like insulation, so you don't end up with lots of thermal bridges.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a close look.
So this is what we ended up with. I've got to trim the length of those handles. You can see that they overlap a wee bit, and I've got to go around and deal with these welds. I've got to flapper those welds back. But that
Getting close, eh?
is our door. There's no rubber in it, hence you can sort of see the light flashing around the edge of the door there. And it's not perfectly trimmed to the door, and it's also not aligned perfectly. So anyway, all of that stuff done.
This week.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love this. Like when that's cut a bit.
Yeah. Oh, you should see them on the outside when they're when it's perfectly shut.
Huh.
Oh, actually, I've got to go and show you this.
Yeah, do that.
So this is what the door basically sits like in the cabin. Ignore the tape on the actual grey cabin, but this is how the door's going to sit. You can sort of see how the handles themselves sit when it's in a closed position. I've got the doors out slightly so that I can show you the closed position, and then we'll give all of this door a bit of a clean up as well. I haven't got the bottom handle on this side in because I'm missing a couple of washers I need to grab tomorrow, but I'm absolutely over the moon at how this turned out.
Hi guys, we've had a few questions from viewers. Are we going to keep videoing when we've got Brupeg in the water once we stop the build? And for us, yeah, this is a 5 to 10 year plan.
Hell yes is the most appropriate way of answering that.
We actually have a lot more time to focus on videoing, but we're going to video everything. There's a lot of engineering that's going to happen on the way as we do different projects. Getting ready for expeditions, particularly going to Antarctica, is going to take a lot of work. We're going to have to haul out and do quite a bit on the hull to do that.
Brupeg is a project boat, so it's not going to be a case of we do the build where we are right now and then launch the boat and off we go and we never touch it again. We'll be welding stuff onto the side, and we'll be ripping stuff off and changing stuff. If we have to stick a crane on the back and cut half the roof off for a project, we will. Like Brupeg is a workboat, so everything on here is modular and able to be chopped up and moved and all that sort of carry on. So and
it's all about fun, and fun for us as engineering, fun for us as projects, doing something that's worthwhile. Lots of people, lots of activity, lots of exploration, I suppose, and seeing remote places. One of our goals is to get to quite a lot of the remote areas of the world, if we can. It all depends on how it all goes, but we're going to video,
and we want to take people with us on those as well. It's not a case of we want you to be a Patreon and you send us off into the sunset and we go, no, hell no, we want to take you with us. So if you can't physically make it onto Brupeg, then you can obviously watch along and see what we're doing. But if you're able to actually get onto Brupeg, then by all means be in touch with us, because we want to take people with us.
And we're going to do meetups along the way. So wherever we're based, we want to meet people, we want to, get to know you. So there's all of that as well. We're filming everything, including what doesn't work. There's a lot of systems that when we're in the water we have to install, and we have to learn about too. So once we're in the water, the launch doesn't mean the end of the build. It's quite the opposite. It's
only halfway through really. Like in the water we've got to do, all of the interior fit out pretty much is yet to happen. So, a lot of that like double glazing, there's going to be like all of the window trims, there's insulation, there's a lot of stuff around insulation because we're going to such cold areas of the world. All of that is yet to happen still.
Including our tech side. There's a lot of tech to put on this boat, and we've got to discover how to do that, and we've got to do it. So there's all that as well. We've had a few comments now about our subscription rate. People have actually got a little bit angry on our behalf, which is really gorgeous. Thank you. We're not worried. For us, we're at the beginning. We're a year and a half in, something like that.
But if you are pissed off enough and you want to help us grow, share it around Facebook and YouTube and that sort of thing.
We'd love that.
That really helps the channel.
But we're in this for the long game, the end game.
The thing that's really cool about this channel that I particularly love is that we know our commenters. So we read every comment that comes through, and we really know the names. So we see the regular commenters and we start to understand who they are and how they communicate and sort of what's going on in their world as well. And we're both kind of nervous about losing that. If the channel blows up really big, like I don't actually ever want to lose that.
We'll cope.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
So don't worry about it, okay? We're not worried. We're just doing what we're doing, and if you like it, that's awesome. And if you want to follow us, that's great. If you want to get on board, fantastic. If you want to support us by joining Patreon, wonderful. We're just enjoying the whole thing and getting to know everyone. So thanks guys, thanks for all your support.
And thanks to everybody that's joined and supported us as it stands right now. Like, really appreciate everyone that's subscribed and helped us out through PayPal, Patreon, and you know, the guys that are regularly interacting with our videos. As I say, we get to know you guys, and we're really grateful that you've come along with us.
And all the volunteers, eh?
Hell
Just
yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks, guys. See ya.
It's gonna cry, it's gonna cry. Hey, I heard you want to leave this place where we grew up. This old town, just leave it all behind. The river's gonna cry when you're gone.